Okay, so today we're still sticking with quadratics, but we're going to be looking at something called the discriminant, which is a really useful tool in maths. And the discriminant is part of the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is... So there's our quadratic formula, and if you want to try and derive this yourselves, you can try and complete the square on a kind of empty or blank quadratic. But the discriminant is part of this, which is this bit here. So we call that the discriminant. Now, the discriminant is very interesting. Because it's inside the square root sign, it is that part of the quadratic. Remember, a quadratic is any formula like that. So there's our kind of standard quadratic. If b squared minus 4ac, this part here decides how many roots the quadratic has. And it's because it's inside the square root. So if you square root a positive, you get 2 roots. If you square root 0, you get 1 root. And if you square root a negative, you get no roots. And it's all to do with how you square root different numbers. So you can't square root negatives, at least in standard maths. You get an imaginary number. Square roots of positive numbers have 2 solutions. So, for example, the square root of 4 could be plus 2 or minus 2. And lastly, the square root of 0 equals 0. So because of these conditions to do with square roots, it means the discriminant part of the quadratic tells us how many roots we have. So we'll go through and show you why that is. Okay, so our 3 conditions then. If b squared minus 4ac, so if the discriminant is greater than 0, if it's positive, you will be square rooting a positive number, which will result in 2 roots. So we say it has 2 real roots. And how that will look on a quadratic is it will have 2 solutions, 2 x-intercepts, 2 roots. So there's 1, and there's 2 roots. Okay, if b squared minus 4ac, if the discriminant equals 0, remember the root of 0 is 0, so our solution will be minus b over 2a. So none of this will exist anymore if the discriminant is 0. Means we have 1 repeated root. Sometimes you say it's 2 equal roots. Now how that looks on a graph, it means the quadratic can only go through once, and you can see that's not going to be possible with a quadratic. So it doesn't actually go through the axis, it just sits on the axis. We say it's grazing the axis. So how that looks is something like this, where our root is that value there. So we say it's 1 repeated root or 2 equal roots. And the last case is when the discriminant is negative. Because we can't root a negative, if the discriminant is less than 0, it means the quadratic doesn't have any roots. And we can still sketch that. All it means is the quadratic will never cross the x-axis. So it'll be something like this, floating around above the axis, never crossing. So this is true for any quadratic. And they love putting this topic in exams. So later on we'll look at a topic called circles. It will come up there. It can come up when you're trying to solve any equation and the result is a quadratic. So it's really, really important. So write down here as well. It comes up in exams very often, e.g. circles, or when a solution is required from a quadratic. So make sure you learn this. So we're talking about how many solutions, how many roots you get, it's always going to be to do with the discriminant. Right, so let's try some examples of this. So we're going to find some discriminants, and then that will be it for today. So could you guys pause the video and try all 3 of these? So we're calculating the discriminant based on these letters from a quadratic equation. Right, so for the first one, a is 1, so x squared there, 1. B is going to be 8, and C is 3. So the discriminant b squared minus 4ac, so we're going to get 8 squared minus 4 times a times c, which will give us 64 minus 12, which equals 52. Now, because the discriminant is positive, it means this quadratic will have 2 roots. So if you wanted to sketch it, it would have 2 roots, something like that. 1, 2. Okay, next one. A is again 1, B is 2, C is 1 also. So b squared minus 4ac, in this case is going to be 2 squared minus 4 lots of 1 times 1. So 4 minus 4, which is 0. So how many roots does this one have? Well, the discriminant is 0, therefore it's going to have 1 repeated root. Something like that, with a repeated root there. Okay, next one, last one. In this case, we've got our terms are jumbled up, so the x squared term is actually in the middle. So a in this case is minus 3, b is 2, c is minus 4. So again, b squared minus 4ac, so b squared is going to be 2 squared minus 4 lots of minus 3 times minus 4. So if we expand this, we're going to get 4 minus 4, yeah, still minus, 12 fours, which is going to be 48, which gives us minus 44. So because the discriminant in this case is negative, it means that our quadratic has no roots. So likely to be sat below the axis like that. Cool. All right, give the quiz for this topic a go.